What's good? What's good? What's good, Brody?
Yeah, what's going on, bro?
And we back for another pod.
Yeah, part 2.5.
Will we be breaking the narrative?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
All right. So, 2.5 of generational curses. So we left off the last part. We was talking about a bunch of curses and solutions.
Yeah, and afterwards, we kind of figured that we didn't really touch base on a lot of different topics. So, especially with Avery had somewhat of an idea that he didn't get a chance to touch on, and I feel as though like he should at least get a chance to like bring his point across. And so I give the floor to you.
Okay. Thank you, my good sir. So, as we often do when we record these podcasts or meet up to do videos and there's a lot of dialogue that goes on behind the scenes.
That's facts.
And we were talking about the generational curses in the podcast that we just did, and I also had thought about a scenario where it was like I had read a couple of articles where people from previous generations, they actually had the money to provide for the family, but would do stuff like in their will they will leave it to the dog, the family pet. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
Send the money to a church or
completely off the wall shit.
yeah, and it's just like I don't know what would cause your mind to think like that, but that's sad. So that was a big problem that I felt like we should have chimed in on the first time around, but second time around is just as good.
Yeah.
So what's your perspective? Like, what do you when you hear me say like stuff like that? What is your immediate reaction to that?
And my immediate reaction is like, "What the fuck were you thinking?"
Yeah,
like, I don't understand the mindset of somebody who would leave like hundreds of thousands of dollars to a family pet, or at least not give it to somebody that's worthwhile. They can actually keep the money and do something with it.
facts. Because you can't tell me there's not at least one worthy person in your family
Yeah,
that does. Your whole family isn't toxic. Your family might be toxic, but your whole family. There's one person you could single out and be like, you know what? They would know what to do with this.
yeah. And it seems like as a collective, we've grown to the point where we feel as though we have to die with everything that we had. Like, come on now.
Yeah, like what's that? Mummies, like the kings.
Yeah, bro. This isn't Egypt. Like, we're not. Even if you do die, you don't take it with you. It's just there. It's just gonna. Eventually, somebody gonna come around and steal it. You see what they doing in the museums now. Like, there's a whole bunch of stolen artifacts.
Tomb Raider.
So, really, all you're doing is hurting the next generation going forward, and then that just puts us in a stagnant place. We're just sitting there every single time pressing the reset button over and over and over again.
Facts. And that could have that could have been a means to get your family on the right track. And I just feel like that's a lot of pride and ego
It is.
because you had the means to do it, or you went out and got it, and now you feel like you want the next generations to go do the same thing. You're confused. From my perspective, that's confusion
It is.
because you don't understand the big picture.
Yeah, because a lot of people who tend to not think future wise. They think of the here and now, because you hear people usually saying, "Well, YOLO, you only live once," or
Yeah.
living your best life. But
Or live for today. 'Cause
Yeah.
tomorrow's not promised.
yeah, but you gotta pay attention. Like, the future is promised to somebody,
Facts.
so you can't just sit there and act like you're not going to like live further on past your years, because your money will live, or
Right.
your knowledge will live.
Right.
There are many different things that can be passed down. It's not just money. There's the knowledge factor. There are also like assets and stuff like that can be passed down. Like, people will inherit a house and then sell it instead of just having the money sitting with the house. Like, that house is nothing but money.
Right.
Like, why sell it? You can pretty much build off of that, and you can have a generational home.
Right.
Like, your family won't have to start from
Ground zero.
Yeah, pretty much. They don't have to start from go from apartment. Then they gotta go to possibly a townhouse. Then from then on, they get like a nicer house. They can have it already.
That's facts. So I kind of feel like you have to be ingrained with the a mode of selflessness to actually be into that kind of stuff. Because it also, well, first made me even realize like this kind of stuff even goes on was what we went through earlier this year with the whole Black Lives Matter movement.
Yeah.
And although it's a lot of speculation on how you can look at that movement, whether it's a paid organization, blah, 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 it's a one perspective that I seen that I also want your opinion on. And it's the perspective of if it doesn't benefit me now, then I don't want to help things get better. You know what I'm saying? So when I say that, it's like it's a lot of people out protesting. It's a lot of people like trying to get laws changed and stuff. But also, it's other people that don't care because this is a long-term project.
Mm-hmm.
You know, to fix the problems that's going on, it's not gonna happen overnight. It ain't gonna happen in 5 years. It took 400 years to get it this way. It might take another 400 to get it back the other way. You know what I mean? And so, and that's just I'm just throwing numbers out. I don't know how long,
Yeah.
But the point is, once people think long term, they're not interested no more because they don't think that they're going to live to see the benefits of it.
Yeah.
So what do you think about that?
Well, I'm sort of like indifferent
Okay.
as far as like first and foremost, Black Lives Matter. I support the movement. I don't support the organization.
Right.
Like a lot of people look at the Black Lives Matter movement and they completely like put it in together with the organization.
Right.
Two separate entities.
Right.
One is a paid organization that pretty much just profiting off of the name.
Right.
The other one is the movement that's pretty much trying to bring about change.
Right.
So that in particular, like you got to separate the two. You can't just lump them in as one. Same thing you do with just black people in general. We're not all thugs, not all criminals.
Right.
So when it comes to what you were talking about just in general with like comparing the Black Lives Matter movement to like a lot of the different things that for real, a lot of people just don't want to do any of the work. It's like they just want it to just happen.
Right.
The first sign of hard work is just like, nah, I'm good.
Right. Right.
And
right.
you treat it just like you treat stocks. It's a long-term investment. You can't expect your money to pay dividends overnight. It takes time.
Right.
So you have to pick apart every little aspect. You have to look at the laws. Then you have to look at the people within the court system. Then you have to look higher up, then higher up, and higher up. But once you get to a certain point, you start to realize, like, damn, we seem as though like we're fucked at this point.
Facts.
Like, because with it being so predominantly centered along one side, it makes it seem as though it seems hopeless in a way.
Right. Right. And that's the thing is like people would take that and just run with it. Which I understand especially if you're in a good situation or you feel like you're in a good situation, then you're gonna be complacent regardless. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. But that brings up another mindset. When you're hopeless, what kind of hopeless are you though?
Yeah, it's different. It's different levels of hopeless. It's hopeless when you don't want to do shit. Then it's hopeless to where you start taking different routes besides.
You're gonna scratch and claw into your, you know what I'm saying? Because even though it seems hopeless, it's in your character to just not give up. Mm-hmm. And then somehow, some way, something always works itself out. Yeah. Which is what I wish a lot of people understood, but it's a process. That. Yeah. So which hopeless are you?
Is it? I don't like my hopeless is more like I know we're fucked in a sense that that this entire like legal system is going to come crashing down on us first. Like, I know that's the process.
Right.
It's always been like that. It's an eradication process. Like they rather be the dominant species. I get it. However, I'm not the one to just sit back and do nothing about it though.
Right.
That's where my hopeless ends. Like if I'm going to be hopeless as far as like not caring about the laws and all of that shit because I know they're not going to change the shit. I'm still going to try and do better for the next generation as far as like them knowing how to carry themselves and how to gain financial status. That way they can change things on their own.
Right.
Even though I can't do it now. That's where the long-term investment that I'm making pays off.
Right. Okay. So I'm kind of in the same boat. You know what I'm saying? I might be a little the other hopeless every once in a while. You know what I'm saying? Sometimes you just want, you know, ain't nothing gonna change. Let me go take a nap. You know what I'm saying? You know, but for the most part, I'm like 90% what you just said. So, I mean, it's gonna be a process, but I ain't gonna lose hope. You know,
Yeah.
whether I see the change or not, I still believe it's gonna happen eventually.
Yeah.
You know,
I mean, it's a lot of people as of right now that's starting to really get it.
yeah,
Because 2020, like, I keep saying, like, the year of perfect vision, bro. Like, people starting to see the world for what it is.
facts. And because of the pandemic, it's like everything's shut down. You know, you're off from work for the most part, and it's like it was no distractions for you to turn up a blind eye to what's going on.
Yeah.
Like the stuff is literally slapping you in the face right now
Mm-hmm.
because everything's closed. Like sports was shut down.
Mm-hmm.
It's nothing on TV, but Black Lives Matter
Yeah.
and the events that led to that.
Mm-hmm.
So it's literally forcing your hand. So there's no more, you know, playing it off as if, oh, you know, I just wasn't aware. It's forcing people like on side. So now you can see whether people are just with the shits or not.
Exactly.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And then you just go accordingly to that. Cause some of my own bros, you know, they err on the other side of like what we're talking about now. You know what I'm saying? And there's nothing wrong with that, but it's at the same time, it's like, well, at least now I know.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Because you don't want to get put in a situation where something drastic has to happen and you're thinking you got certain people with you, but turns out it ain't who you think they are. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So it's 2020 is real knowledgeable, and if you learn like any type of lessons, you gotta also apply the lessons too, because that's I feel like that's a generational curse in itself.
Yeah. Applying them lessons. Yeah.
Yeah. So if I you know stick my hand in the fire, and my hand gets burnt, if I come back next week, the lesson is if I stick my hand in the fire, it gets burnt and it hurts. But I have to apply that lesson, because if I still keep sticking my hand in the fire, then what's the point of learning the lesson? You know what I'm saying? Like, so I mean, it's just so much.
It is, and I know like with us and as black people and shit, like we need to start learning lessons.
Yeah.
Like certain things that we see or that we've come across in our lives and stuff, like we have to learn from that.
Right.
Like we got to break the generational curses of like this depression and shit. Like we got to learn how to do that. Man, I see a lot of people that's actually taking the steps in order to do that.
Yeah.
Meditation being one of the biggest keys of doing that.
Yeah.
And it helps with anxiety and stuff like that.
Facts.
And getting away from all of the negativity and stuff like that. Like they forcing it down your throat every day. That way you can stay that way and they can keep you where you at.
Right.
So to me, like just detaching yourself from stuff like that is a way of breaking a generational curse, because you're not forcing yourself to stay in a stagnant lifestyle.
Facts. Yeah, so just incorporating more, and you know it's a process. So even if you just do it teeny bit by teeny bit, you know what I'm saying, just incorporating a little bit of more positivity, a little bit more positive thinking about whatever situation you're in, making the best of every situation. You know, if you got, even if you need help getting into like the meditation thing, if you got like a couple of solid friends, I think everybody has at least one solid friend. Even if you don't acknowledge, you know, a lot of people, I don't have no friends, and you know what I'm saying? But like, you have friends, you just don't want to acknowledge that you have friends.
And you might be the bad friend, to be honest.
Yeah, like shit. Yeah, but it takes wanting to change, having the resources to change, and actually trying to change.
Exactly.
Yeah, instead of just talking about it,
Mm-hmm.
And I've been there. I was on that side. Well, I never was on that. I ain't had no friend side, but
Yeah.
Man, that stuff don't work. This and that.
Yeah, but I was one of those. I was one of those, bro.
Hey, you saying it's like a little meme on social media, and it was like everything that black people going through this year. We better be the main characters in the next Bible.
I never saw that.
Yeah, I seen that the other day. I was laughing. I was crying. So I'm like, that's hilarious. Everything that black people going through in 2020, we better be the main characters in the next Bible. Yeah, that's hilarious. But my bad. We gotta add in the jokes. We gotta throw in the jokes now. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But
the 2020 chapter.
Yeah.
Verse 12. The Kobe Bryant section.
No, boy. Yeah, that'd be the beginning. And then we got the 21st coming up, so this might be towards the end of the Bible when black people get the powers and all that.
That's where the Bible ends. And then it just start glowing on the next page.
Hey, because I showed you the little the Dr. Umar joke.
Yeah.
Had Dr. Umar on the little Zordon
the little
energy tube. Yeah.
That's how people gonna be on it.
People me reporting the boss once I get my superpowers on the 21st.
So black people about to be like Yoda. Like, remember when Yoda, like, he first started out, he was all decrepit and old, and all of a sudden, like, you see him fighting he fighting like, this man was fighting like he was 300-400 years younger. This man had youth.
So let me ask you a question, right? And before we get back to what we was talking about, and I got this from Daniel, Doc or whatever.
Yeah,
and
shout out to Daniel, folks, bro.
Yeah, shout out to Doc, man. And he had randomly asked, we talk a lot, but he randomly asked me, like, when I was talking to him about the 21st, he asked me, like, if you could pick, like, what power you wanted, what would you get? So what would you pick if you had a chance? Like, if you could just any character or any type of elements, or like,
bruh, I don't know, bro. To be honest, I think matter in general. To be able to control matter is to be able to control damn near everything.
Right. Yeah. I was more so territorial. So, I told him Aquaman. You know what I'm saying?
Like, run around with the trident.
Yeah, and I told my bro yesterday, Aquaman. He was like, "Oh, Aquaman don't do nothing for real. He be talking to the fish and all that." I said, "Nah, you see a good guy, Aquaman, with those kind of powers." I said, "Trust me, if I get them kind of powers, niggas not gonna want to come to the water at all." You know what I'm saying? I'm talking about sharks, whales, Loch Ness monsters, like whatever's in the water.
The Loch Ness monster. Come on, bro.
Y'all, you done seen Family Guy where Aquaman was having the fish bring him something to drink and all that. I said, y'all been watching the wrong Aquaman, so I might be the biggest villain on the planet. I get them powers, you know what I'm saying? But nah, I would take that, or like just any type of airbender element, water, fire, air, preferably air, because that would give you control over a lot of things.
You get control over breathing and shit. Yeah. Take the air out of somebody's body and like that. Be like the finishing move off of Mortal Kombat.
Yeah, or something wild like that. But yeah, that would be dope. So if I wake up on the 21st, and so you live right behind me, so you would know before anybody. You hear like loud banging. Electricity flying, and something on fire.
Somebody in my house waking up, they're like, "Oh, what happened?" I was like, "Oh, that's probably just Avery."
Nah,
he got his powers. I'm just waiting on mine to show
up. Yeah, loading up and shit. He got his at 9. I wonder when I'm gonna get mine. Shit, it's 9:30.
Exactly, bro. That UPS truck ain't show up yet.
That's dope. That's dope. But back to the topic at hand.
Yeah.
So, did you have anything that you wanted to touch on as far as like the curses go that we didn't touch on last time?
I mean, as far as the curses in general,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I feel as though with the older generation, they like I remember because you did say that they kind of like held back on a lot of like the finances and shit.
Yeah, yeah.
But I feel as though they, in a way, kind of purposely held back knowledge just so you can learn it on your own instead of telling you.
Right. Okay.
Because there are some families that are missing out on knowledge that should have been like actually taught to them as at a younger age, but then the older generation just like, well, they'll learn it in due time, or they'll tell you
Right.
something like, you'll figure it out eventually.
Yeah, yeah.
Like you hear that a
Yeah.
lot.
Or you, oh, you know, y'all got it better than we had it, so you'll get it together, you know.
Yeah,
And yeah, that's yeah.
it's I always disliked that concept because like you're taking away from the sponge effect of a
Facts.
child. A child is nothing more than a sponge.
Facts.
Like they're gonna take in information whether positive or negative, and they're gonna apply that whether they like it or not. Like that's just something that they do. Because as a child, I feel as though like I was learning things, like first and foremost that I first like for real, I shouldn't have learned.
Okay.
But then I see the things that I should have learned. Is just like once I got older and I started seeing like people doing it, I was like, wait, you could have taught me this. I would have been great at this.
Right.
And it's frustrating to see because you look at the way our families are set up, and it's usually like the grandmother is the head of everything. I mean,
Fact.
you can have like the grandfather like still like being at her side and giving you that positive reinforcement, but it seems like the grandmother is usually the forefront and the thing that holds people together.
Facts.
And then all of that information, it seems that like you have to ask them for it.
Right.
Like it seemed like they didn't really pass it down in the way of like the grandkids and stuff like that. It seems it should be like generational knowledge that we should know.
Right.
Because I'll actually go to my grandmother right now. I'll ask her certain things and about how it was back when she was growing up and stuff like that. And it was just such a different time back then.
Right.
And
And it's definitely a different world.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's worth knowing.
Right.
And I really would just sit down and talk to her about it. And I remember I wrote an article about it. It was in like Reunions magazine back in like 2010 or something like that.
Okay.
And I did a whole interview with her, and I put it on paper. I just wrote down everything that she had went through back in the day. Like they had to walk like miles to school.
Right.
They were playing baseball in the backyard. They would take up collections in the backyard. This actually going from one generation to the next. It was like passed down. That stuff like they'll take up a collection in the yard for if they were ever break a window because they're playing baseball.
Oh, okay. Got you. Got you.
And it's stuff like that that you would like to learn, but it's not something that is like financially like improve. Like it's not going to improve you financially. It's not going to improve you mentally or anything like that.
Well,
but
in that situation, I kind of feel like that kind of provides like a thing of accountability, though.
yeah,
You know, because you're already preparing. If you know that you're doing something in the area where you shouldn't be doing it, you're kind of preparing for the ramifications of it if something go wrong.
yeah,
So it's still something that you can learn and take with you.
yeah. It's smart, but
Versus like we just growing up and doing it anyway. It's like I got like, so we was like I think in a 6th or 7th. It was in 7th grade, right? And so it's me and about 5 or 6 other people, and we outside of like across the street from Berkshire Courts, you know, and we young, and so a couple of my friends was like throwing rocks
yeah,
at people cars that was driving past. So me, I already know like I've never broken nobody's window before, nothing like that. But I know throwing rocks at people cars driving past, especially in the area we live in, not really a good idea.
Definitely.
So somebody had ended up taking a rock and throwing it, and the window had broke, like the back window. So nobody never thought that a window might break, even though niggas is throwing these sharp ass rocks. So everybody like started running, blah blah blah, and me being the bigger kid, I'm one of the ones that got caught. And so in the midst of like the person basically accusing me of doing it just because I got caught and I ran, even though I didn't do it. Like to this day, I didn't do it. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
It was just like that was an accountability thing.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And of course, once like, well, it did come into play because once like people had seen that I was the one that was, well, one of the ones because it was three of us. I was one of the ones that was getting in trouble for it, but they knew I didn't do it. They did eventually step up and you know claim what they did and shit. You know what I'm saying? And that's just, you know, you have to be taught that though.
Yeah.
Because how many times have people been accused of murder that didn't do it, but nobody steps up,
Yeah.
and now the person is looking at life and didn't do it. You know?
Yeah. It's a generational curse. You can't. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it, bro. Like, accountability is a generational curse.
Facts.
Like, it starts from a kid, and I know that I never really had like the talk about like personal accountability and stuff like that. It was just it was just the basics for children. Like, be good, and that's about
yeah,
it.
yeah, and if you and get whooped if you don't.
Yeah, exactly.
Like that was the talking a lot of the time. The belt.
Yeah.
The belt.
Yeah, that too, bro. I mean, some kids need it, but there's a lot of the times where it's just like you just doing it just because you feel upset.
Yeah, and I agree.
Like, that's another thing that needs to be touched on, bro. Like, we ain't slaves no more.
Facts.
We ain't slaves no more. Don't treat a child like a slave.
Yeah.
Like, just because they got out of line, like, off of some very slight shit. Like, I've seen kids get whooped just for like going the wrong direction.
Right.
And
That's more so of a mental thing with the parent than, you know, than the punishment for a kid doing something wrong.
yeah, and a lot of us, it just seems as though like we're just beating kids just because we got beat, and now we want to inflict the same type of pain, or like we just have a superiority complex now.
Right.
Because like young,
completely agree.
At a younger age, we felt so inferior.
Yeah.
Like, now we get to dish out the same punishment. It's like, no, don't reciprocate that energy.
Right.
Like,
Completely agree.
parents, at least they did tell you, like, or some of them, it's like, I want you to be better than me and not necessarily be the same.
Right.
But a lot of times they're not teaching us to be better. They're just teaching us to be the same.
Right. Yeah, because at the end of the day, the actions is definitely more valuable than the words.
Exactly.
You know. So speaking of talks with parents and grandparents, I'm not sure if we touched on this, and if we did, I don't think we went into serious depth about it. So did you have any talks with like your parents or grandparents about dating?
Nah. Outside, nah, not really. Cause I mean, as a kid, I was real shy and closed off. I mean, I had girlfriends, but it was just like, back then I was too immature to really understand the concept of a full-on relationship.
Right.
So I never really had like the talk about like dating in general. It was just after you get the one talk about sex in general, like after that, there's nothing more.
Yeah, the cliche. Yeah.
And I ain't even really get to talk about that for real. It was like I felt embarrassed while talking about. I was like, Mom, please, this is weird. Like, so my idea on it was just like I had a slight talking to about it, but it was never like something really substantial. It was just somewhat insignificant.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't necessarily remember like my mom talking to me about it. Maybe my older brothers, but it wasn't nothing like structured or knowledgeable. Cause right now my mind's drawing a blank, and and we have this talk all the time. If it's something knowledgeable or structurable, I'm gonna always remember.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So might have brushed over it, but other than that, like you said, you kind of just the initial, I like her. Oh, we boyfriend and girlfriend now because we like each other. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, that was that old kindergarten
Yeah, the
phase.
kindergarten, yeah, and then you get to like the end of elementary school, and it's like, okay, I talk on the phone, and then middle school is like, I talk on the phone and might go out, and then high school is like talk on the phone, go out, maybe have sex, but you're not, you're not doing nothing. You're not like building a real relationship.
No,
Because that's not what a relationship is.
They just react off of hormones.
Right. That's exactly what it is. You know what I'm saying? So it ain't like, nobody's like, yeah, if somebody would have sat down and been like, yo, you find you a female that you like, life is hard. It'll be better off if you choose to build with somebody for the long haul versus like what society makes seem cool is, you bounce around from female to female, who can get the most girls, who can sleep with the most girls. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So it's like, because we didn't have the talk, now I'm only seeing what society is showing me.
That is 100% facts.
And I don't know no better. You know what I'm saying?
I can attest to that. Like, I've seen so many people fall under that same spell.
Right. Because it's like, if I'm prepared for it, I can prepare for it.
Yeah.
Like, if somebody be like, you going up the street, take a bulletproof vest with you because niggas known to shoot up there.
Yeah.
Now, if I'm walking through, I might have a vest on. So that way, if niggas start shooting, at least I know, like, damn, such and such did warn me. Versus, like, me just walking up the street with nothing. And niggas start shooting. And, you know what I'm saying?
I was the type of person, I ain't gonna walk up that street at all.
I mean, yeah. But at the same time, you know how kids are.
Yeah.
You know how niggas are. You know what I'm saying?
They're really inquisitive. They just want to do what makes them feel as though like, oh, this piques my curiosity. Let me go ahead and see what this is about.
And sometimes it is just an adrenaline rush.
That's also true.
Yeah, you know what I'm saying? But yeah, so I never just had to talk about dating, and now, what kind of talk would you give your kid nowadays?
Man,
because at least things were kind of structured when we were younger.
Man, now everything is just all off. Like, man, that's like trying to tame a shark.
Yeah, yeah, like it's like the positions of the male and female are so different now.
Yeah,
like females are like, at least from my perspective, so don't take this with a grain of salt, but females are like on such a high pedestal now. Mm-hmm. Like it's almost like you have to bow down to a female.
In a way, I kind of get where you're going with that. It's just like the whole feminism thing has just like turned females into like, I'm not gonna say all and shit,
not all.
It's turned a lot of females into like they give themselves somewhat of a superiority complex.
Yeah.
But me, I know for a fact, bro. I worship the ground the black women stand on. I'll be the first to tell you.
Facts.
But if you pretty much just gonna look at me and feel as though, oh, you should be groveling at my feet and shit like that. If you're gonna look at me like that, you're not getting my respect.
Facts. You should just let it happen.
Exactly. Like, it's one thing to be worshipped, it's another thing to be cocky because of it.
Right. And to expect it.
Exactly.
Because even if you do get worship, you should still
like humble yourself.
Yeah, be humble. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, like,
because there's no law or no rule saying that you have to be worshipped. Mm-hmm. Like, this is somebody going out of their time, giving you themselves. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, like, again, like we did get to a certain we did get to a point, like, especially in the years that's passed. Like I think from like 2018 to like now,
Mm-hmm.
where black women are becoming like more predominantly strong, and we're really appreciating them a lot more.
Right.
But then there are still those ones that just want to jump out there and do whatever the hell they want and shit. Just like I ain't gonna hold you. I'm not a Meg Thee Stallion fan. I'm not a Cardi B fan. I'm not any of them fans and shit. Like I don't like. I'm not gonna put those type of females on the queen pedestal.
Right.
I'm sorry. I don't care how you feel about it, but I'm not the type of person to put them on like the queen pedestal, because to me, if you're gonna like pretty much just jump into the idea of like regardless of what it is you do, like
Mhm.
like sexually and shit, like if you just gonna put yourself out there in the forefront and shit, like I'm not gonna treat you with respect because you're not showing respect to yourself first.
Right.
Like, I'm just not that type of guy. But that's what society has made it. Society has made it to where like we sexualize the female so much to where, especially the black women, like,
Right.
we sexualize them to the point where that's a marketing tool. And they
Right.
feel as though
Right.
like that's
The
the
biggest
only,
marketing
yeah,
tool.
and they feel as though that's the only way to do it.
Right.
You see like Instagram models and shit like that, and men now like they like, oh my god, queen, like yeah, I love to be with you, queen. Like, dude, first and foremost, don't put her in that queen category. You misconstruing the idea,
Right.
cause the term queen like that, queen comes with a sense of royalty. Queen is comes with a sense of respect, self-respect, and the idea that I am like first and foremost I'm somebody to be worshipped. So I'm gonna carry myself like somebody who deserves to be worshipped.
Right.
And then once I start looking at somebody like that way, like if you're gonna advertise a steak to a lion, don't fucking matter to them. It's food.
Right.
It's
Right.
food.
Right.
Like you can't get mad at him because he ate it.
Right.
But a lot of females now is just like we want we want to advertise the steak, but you can't acknowledge that the steak is there.
Right. 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 Yeah, it's the whole, just because I'm naked don't sexualize me ordeal. And
Yeah.
just because I talk about sex still doesn't give you the right to sex. It's essentially stripping the reality out of everything.
Yeah.
And we're like almost in an alternate universe
Mhm.
where as though I can stab you 20 times and you die, but don't call me a murderer.
Mhm.
You know what I'm saying? And it's like this is the alternate reality that we're creating, or that we're going by with society, by the way, or whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that it just came from the idea that black women are like sexual objects. Like
Right.
black women, they started off like we started off in general in this country. Well, not in the U.S. as we know it today.
Right.
We started off as slaves, but for real, we was here first. I ain't gonna jump into that though.
Right.
But
So that's another talk for another day.
exactly. But we were slaves, and they sexualized the black woman outside of her being a slave.
Right.
Like, if you know the story of Sarah Bartman, like they pretty much just they paraded her around Europe for years just because of her assets.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And
Yeah. That's the one that's in the museum, right?
exactly, and,
Right.
and
Right.
they just returned her remains to her, like to her family
Right.
recently. Like within the last 5 years, I think they did that.
That's crazy.
So they sexualized the black woman like a long time ago. But for real, like once you, like at one point we were, like being naked was not a sexualized thing
Right. Right.
until they deemed it
Right.
as a sexualized thing.
Right.
I understand like nudity in general,
Right.
but the sexualizing of the nudity, that's when it becomes a problem.
Right.
Like if a woman is just naked because like that's like she feels free that way, and it's like a cultural thing, sure.
Right.
But if you're just naked just to get attention and it's a sexualized and ingrained mind state, then you don't have my respect.
Right.
There's differences. There's levels to this. So that in turn, like you can eventually, like with this can become a generational curse if we let it.
Right.
So this wasn't just a trail off point. This is a possibility of becoming a generational curse, because where we are at now in this world, this can either it could teach us a lesson,
Right.
or it can go from one generation to the next, and eventually it just becomes our downfall.
Right. I think with the females nowadays, I think once it hits like the next generation, because the next generation seems very very smart for the most part. Like right now, I feel like our generations, it's the opposite. People are starting to become like more smarter and aware, like we talked about earlier, but also feel like the majority of people is like they need this attention that they just didn't get growing up, or they didn't get from their family, or they don't get from significant others, or school,
Yeah,
work.
which is a generational curse in its own.
Right.
The lack of attentiveness.
Right. Because if you're built to where as though you need that attention, then it's really no. I ain't gonna say it's no hope, but it's really no stopping that person from, especially a nice looking female like a Meg The Stallion. And I'm a Meg The Stallion fan, not music wise, but just you know the way she looks. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And
Yeah, I
is
mean, kind of had no choice with that and shit.
yeah. I mean she's just stacked from head to toe.
Yeah,
So
that's true.
but I'm a female fan in general. So I
Yeah.
appreciate all types of females. You could big, small, stack, flat. I'm pretty
Yeah.
face, ugly face,
Yeah, yeah.
long hair,
You're
short
an
hair.
opportunist.
Huh?
You're an opportunist.
I mean, I wouldn't say that, but I appreciate the female species. I'll just say that. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But it's like it also would take the females to like realize that and to chill out with it.
Yeah.
So it as usual, what I'll say about almost every curse is it's put upon us by the powers that be in the hopes that we won't have enough discipline to turn it away.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And when that happens, which is 97% of the time it does, it's usually like an offer for somebody that's too good to pass up.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I get it.
Yeah.
I get it.
So I mean, it's just so much that you can unwrap about that situation. I don't know. But what else you got? Let's getting off the dating and the females thing, because we just talked about them all seriously, and then we still have the 2.5
Yeah.
of talking about them in the foolery way. You know what I
Oh,
mean?
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, look out for that one.
Yeah.
But I did have somewhat of a slight idea. It was just like
Okay.
the previous generations with the idea of like pretty much enslaving themselves into society.
What you mean?
Like they pretty much sold their soul to society, and now we have to pay for it.
Facts. Agreed.
And they're like they became like so comfortable with the idea of just working for long periods of time,
Mm-hmm.
and that was just like their engraved mindset.
Right.
And once they got to a certain point, they taught us to do the exact same thing.
Right.
And now every single place that we go to expects us to be the exact same way.
Right.
So their idea of being like content carries over, and now all of the corporations look at every single generation as this, like, you have to follow this template.
Right.
And I feel as though like that needs to be touched on, because a lot of them don't really want to take accountability for that,
Right.
because you look at people who actually are spending like years upon years at one specific place,
Mm-hmm.
and they'll look down on you if you get like a promotion or something within like a couple of months and they've been there for years,
Right.
because they thought the only way for them to do that is for them to work for a long period of time. And it was like, no, the reason why they got promoted is not because they just were a worker. They didn't want to be just a worker. They wanted to be something more than that.
Right.
But some actually get to a point where they can't even break out of that. Like, even if somebody like just coming in and they want to be something more, like some companies won't even take you any further unless you have like a certain amount of experience. And once you have a certain amount of experience, they won't even accept you because they'll bring in somebody who has like a college degree or something like that
Right.
and knows nothing about the process at all.
Right.
And it's like, oh, you have to take different avenues in order for you to do certain things, but it's sort of like unfair
Mm-hmm.
in a way, because all they're looking at is the idea that we are like the same generation as the previous one, so they can treat us the same way.
Right. And right now, like a lot of people are just standing up to that and saying no, like stuff got to change. You know what I mean? And it's man, that's why I say it's gonna take generations to fix, because it's like the counterparts have such a head start, and they're not falling for the same obstacles that we falling for now. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
Like, granted, everything's sexualized in the world, but only towards a certain culture.
yeah,
You know what I mean? And it's easy to garner all this money on one side, but damn near impossible on the other side. You know? And then when people do garner like big amounts of money, they influence to spend it on other things instead of, you know, doing what's good. And you know, nobody's obligated to do. At the end of the day, nobody's obligated. You know what I'm saying?
mm-hmm.
But if people really wanted to see like the world be a better place, then you would at least do something.
Yeah. Then it goes back into your idea, at least like the
Yeah.
hopelessness. Like, which hopeless are you?
Right. And it's just like that's the real side of hopeless, where it's just like, you know what? I ain't got this money, but I ain't gonna do that. I'm gonna go buy this car instead. You know what I'm saying?
Yep.
Yeah, and yeah, it's a lot. It's just a lot. But I still believe. John Cena, man, never give up, man.
I mean, he also said that you can't see me, but
I ain't say that though. I'm just saying, I'm just saying to never give up. You know what I'm saying? There ain't.
oh, if you guys can't see it, but he just did the "you can't see me."
Yeah. The 5 knuckle shuffle.
Come on, son. Hey, we don't need to be in here wrestling, dog. That's the last thing you need.
Yeah. So you got anything else you want to top on? Well, tackle
Pause, first and foremost.
I said top on. Yeah.
Yeah.
Add on before we get up out of here, because right now we're at the 50-minute mark. That was a quick 50 minutes, right?
It really was. I
Yeah.
didn't expect it to be like as long as it was. Pause again, but I didn't expect the video to be as long as it was, because I mean we did like talk about a lot of this stuff already.
Yeah, it was just a couple of things that we wanted to chime on, and then of course the relatable stories,
Exactly.
and I guess when it comes to educational stuff, it really isn't there's no limit to what you can talk about.
It is really not, because I try my best to be as knowledgeable as possible, so I could at least possibly like somebody can learn something from me. I can learn something from somebody else.
Right.
Like, I'm not the type of person that like, oh, I'm right, you're wrong. You got to learn from me. You can't learn from anybody else. Now, I learn from everybody. I learn from like regardless of if it's negative or positive. I'm always trying to learn something.
Facts. Yeah, same here, especially with stuff like this where, you change the course of your family's, in betterment, basically.
Yeah.
So, I mean, so do you foreshadow like, this is 2.5? Do you foreshadow a part 3?
It's a possibility. Like we have so much to talk about in a lot of different things, and then it's a lot of people that we know that have like certain types of outlooks. So you
Facts.
can actually expect to see somebody like show up on the show. And,
Oh yeah, of course. We definitely gonna have guests. Definitely gonna have guests. Wouldn't be right without it. So I would say shout everything out, but I think by now people, if they listening, they should know.
yeah,
Yeah.
like BTN Breaking the Narrative podcast, bro.
Yes, sir.
Like, it's about as good as it gets, man.
I'm Bear.
Oh, you're Bear today?
I'm Bear today.
You're Bear? Okay.
Well, I'm Bear on the educational podcast, and I'll be Avery when we do the females and the foolery podcast.
So you got the whole Beyonce Sasha Fierce thing going on?
Well, I think mine's a little better than Beyonce's, but it's a nice way to look at it, I guess. Good analogy.
I guess if you think split personalities is a good analogy.
Yeah, I'm a fan of the split personality, man. We know how to use it.
That's a topic for another day, bro.
It is. It is.
Topic for another day.
And I look forward to having that conversation too.
I mean, we probably done had the conversation multiple times
We
off
have,
the air, but it's
but
just like y'all
record
didn't
it.
hear it
Yeah, record it. I look very forward to this conversation.
yet. Yeah. Hey, I tell you, if y'all could hear like some of the stuff we talk about like off the air, you just be like, bro, how the hell can y'all keep talking about this and not like miss a beat and still have more stuff to talk about?
Yeah, it's. I feel like because the conversation, even though the podcast we keep these to an hour, and sometimes they go to an hour and 30, but the conversations off air be hours. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And
Don't let us touch on music.
yeah, which we plan on doing very soon, by the way.
Yeah, that's facts.
Yeah, but this has been another episode. Generational Curses 2.5. I said Generational Curses 3, but instead of that, we'll probably just do 2.7 or 2.8. So, just get it all the way to 3.
So we're gonna do like the Carter 2 and 2.5, 2.7.
Yeah.
So these the podcast mixtapes.
Yeah, just no ceilings. But we ain't gonna give Wayne too much run. He out here wilding right now. So
yeah, man, been on some coon shit for a break.
all right, but we out.